Hey everyone, and welcome back to Battleborn. I've got a new build for you. This one is for Alani, and I call it Revitalizing Surge. With this build, you're going to have decent damage and really high attack speed, so you can apply pressure to your enemies, build your osmosis stack super fast, and pump out a lot of healing. Plus, you're going to have great crowd control, so if people jump on you to try to kill you, you can get away from them, or you can use your crowd control to set them up to be killed by yourself or your allies. Alright, so if this sounds like your type of build, let's jump into the Helix and I'll show you how to set it up. Alright, level 1, both of these options are really good. It just depends on what you're looking for. If you go to the left with Soothing Mist, it's going to add a heal over time to your Riptides, which have a much lower cooldown and you're using them all the time. So that's just some nice extra healing you're constantly pumping out. If you want burst heals, go to the right with Splash Zone, which adds a heal to the geyser, which is actually the area that it heals is a little bit bigger than the geyser itself, so it's not quite as exact as it may sound. Now, my personal preference on this level is to go to the left with Soothing Mist, because I don't like taking Splash Zone because it kind of changes my gameplay in a way I don't like. I like to use my geysers just to trap people, and I don't like having to worry about using it to heal. So I like it on Soothing Mist. It's just sort of something I'm using all the time. Alright, level 2, both of these are pretty bad, to be honest. Pressure Gradient on the left is horrible, so don't take it. You're rarely ever going to catch more than one person in a bubble. And Surface Tension isn't all that great, but it does have its use. If you catch anyone with the bubble, any damage you do to it is going to do 15% of that damage they receive to nearby targets. So take Surface Tension on the right. Level 3, I go up the middle with Kinetic Diffusion. Now at maximum osmosis stacks, Alani moves 30% faster, which is fantastic. She's super slow normally, and this gives her a huge movement speed boost. And in a lot of games, you kind of hover at max osmosis stacks for a long time, so it's a big movement speed quite often because you'll be holding on to your stacks, waiting to heal someone, and while that's happening, you've got this huge boost, which is fantastic. You could go to the left with Pressure Wash if you really wanted to. That increases your projectiles, but I don't really find the distance to be an issue. And on the right, you could take Overflow, which increases all healing by 15%. Don't let that tooltip fool you. All healing of Wellspring, that is, but the healing is already so strong, I don't find it to be useful. Alright, level 4, I go to the left with Wet Blanket. That adds a slow to Riptide, great for setting up kills or escaping from people that jump onto you. Wave Shock in the middle, I don't find it does enough damage to be worth taking it, and Ride the Wave I don't find useful at all. You use Riptide all the time, you don't really want to be shooting yourself in the direction that you're using it in most cases. So go to the left with Wet Blanket. Level 5, I go to the right with Full Saturation. That makes it so whenever you heal someone at maximum osmosis, they get 30% damage reduction for 3 seconds, which is a great help to them, and especially yourself. If you're healing yourself, you're probably in trouble, and that damage reduction really comes in handy. You could go to the left with Caraca Fruit Express. That gives you a little bit of damage boost whenever you gain osmosis. I don't really find it all that useful. And I don't find Extremophile in the middle useful either because your heals are already so strong. You don't really want to reduce their effect. Plus, if you happen to heal someone without max stacks, it actually can reduce the healing they receive, and that's no good. So I go to the right with Full Saturation. Alright, level 6, this one's an easy one. Go to the right with Refresher. Moving through Riptide pools generates osmosis, and like I said, you're using Riptide all the time. It's the best way to generate your osmosis. Channeling just doesn't work nearly frequently enough to really make it worth it, and even if you do catch someone in every single geyser, it still really wouldn't be better than Refresher. Alright, level 7, I go to the left with Whitewater. That increases your attack speed of Torrent, which helps you build your osmosis stacks quicker. You could go with the flow if you really wanted to, but I don't find the skills to be strong enough to really warrant it. But with Refresher on level 6, It will let you build Osmosis stacks quicker with your Riptides, so I guess it's personal preference, but to me, Whitewater on the left is the clear winner. Alright, level 8. 2 of these are really good. You can go with Aquifer on the left to decrease your geyser eruption time, which is usually what I like to pick. Or you can go with the old Trustworthy on the right, which increases the area of effect radius of geyser, making it easier to catch people in it, but you still have the slow eruption like before. So personal preference here, mine is to go to the left with Aquifer. The middle option just adds damage to geyser, and its damage is horrible, so don't take that one. Level 9, this one's an easy choice. Go to the left with Stagnant Pools. That doubles the duration of Riptide up to 6 seconds now, which helps, which increases the healing from Soothing Mist from your level 1 Helix if you chose that. And you just don't want Waterproof on the right. The distance on Riptide is already great. There's no reason to increase it. And level 10, all of these are good. It just depends on what you're looking for. You can go with Undertow on the left, which adds a really nasty slow to Emergence, to the Whirlpool that Emergence leaves behind. I really like that option. It sets up great kills because the Emergence Whirlpool is huge. And you can get them slowed, and then when they leave the Emergence Whirlpool, you could even hit them with your Wet Blanket and get them slowed again. So that's the option I usually take. You can go up the middle with Transpiration, which is going to reset all your skill cooldowns when you use your ultimate, which is really nice if you want to get Riptide out again for a slow, or to build your Osmosis, or if you think you can catch people in your geyser. I don't typically like my skills more than a slow or a heal, but you can go with that option if you want your skills back. And you can go on the right with Deepsong. If you feel you need more healing, you can get a really big heal off of your ultimate. Alright, so those are the Helix choices that I make, or at least some of the options that you have. Let's jump to the gear and I'll show you what I like to bring. Alright, this first set is what I bring into Incursion and Meltdown. This is a set I love. I use it on so many characters. First item is Survivor's Regrowth Serum. 7 health regeneration per second and an extra 4.2 if you survive for 3 minutes. Second item is an Eviscerating Endoskeletal Graft, attack damage and attack speed. And the third item is the Vow of Zealous Fury from Rendane, attack speed, critical hit damage, and stacking attack speed whenever you use a skill. So that's my expensive set for Incursion and Meltdown. If I go into Capture, I like to bring this set. First item is Artificial Vitae, 7 health regen per second. Second item is an Antiquated Elfrin Warblade for attack speed at the cost of shield strength, which Alani doesn't have a shield, so it does not affect her. And the third item is Unstable Exogreaves for movement speed at the cost of increased recoil, and recoil does not affect Alani as well. So no negative from either of those items, and they're both free. So the whole set only costs 420 crystals. Alright, so those are my Helix choices and the gear I like to take. Let's go ahead and jump to some clips and I'll explain to you how the level progression works with this build. I view Alani as a pest that is a pain to uproot out of a lane, and this holds true right out of the gate. With her ability to do decent damage with her auto attacks and gain Osmosis to heal herself or allies, the enemy team is going to have a really hard time pushing you out. I suggest you hop in the lane right away and work on minion waves while trying to put the enemy team on the defensive so you can get a level and crystal advantage for your team. Look for opportunities to put people in geysers if they overextend, heal yourself and allies, and get as much experience as you can. Regardless if you took Soothing Mist or Splash Zone for your level 1 Helix, you should be able to counter most enemy attacks at this early stage because the enemy players just simply aren't doing enough damage yet to overcome all of your heals. Level 2 gives you virtually no benefit at all through your Helix, so nothing should change in your approach. Just keep trying to hold your lane and keep on the offensive because an Alani on the defensive is usually a lot less effective. I recommend using your Riptides on the minion waves so you get assist experience on all of them, and save your geysers as an escape tool to catch advancing players or to catch enemies to set them up for a kill by yourself or your allies. You don't even necessarily have to catch a player in the geyser. If you drop it on their escape path, it may force them to wait until it erupts, or they may have to choose a different path. And if they have to make a decision on the fly while they're dying, they're usually just going to end up getting themselves killed. At level 3, you get Kinetic Diffusion, which is arguably the best offensive tool you'll get in the entire Helix. 30% movement speed is a huge boost to your offense because it makes you harder to hit and allows you to actually chase people down and finish kills rather than them simply leaving you in the dust because of how slowly you move. On most games, I spend a substantial amount of time at max osmosis, so it ends up being an almost permanent buff. You should really only be healing people when you're at max osmosis in most situations, and if your teammates are good at avoiding damage, you won't need to throw out heals very often. Also, because of the regen gear we take, you shouldn't need to heal yourself all that often, especially when you factor in Geyser or Riptide heals as well. Level 4 is another big level because you pick up the slow on Riptide. After I pick up this Helix, I'm such a huge pain to kill, and finishing off enemies becomes vastly easier once you slow them down. If a melee charges me, I can usually just kite them with my increased movement speed I'm getting from max osmosis, but in case I'm not at max or they've hit me with some sort of CC, then I can simply Riptide, which will push them away, put a slow on them, and put a haste on me, making it very easy for me to escape. If an enemy is getting low on health and thinking about escaping, I can throw out the Riptide to slow them, speed myself and my allies up, and rip them apart. It's an incredibly strong tool, and if you learn to use it effectively, it'll keep you alive and get you a ton of kills and assists. Level 5 is yet another strong level because you now give damage reduction to anyone you heal with max osmosis, including yourself, and you pick up your ultimate. The damage reduction on heals is just a passive boost, and you shouldn't change your healing style as a result. It's just a tool to keep your target alive for longer after you heal them, giving you time to build more osmosis for a follow-up heal if you need it. As for the ultimate, I surprisingly get the most use out of it from killing minions, which is the only ultimate I consistently use for that purpose. Alani's wave clearing is not that great, and the ultimate allows me to handle that now, while simultaneously denying an enemy advance or escape in most situations. Once I get to level 10, I tend to use it more aggressively and attach it to an enemy or ally charging into enemies, but for now I prefer it for wave clearing. Level 6 continues the trend of awesome Helix upgrades with Refresher. Now whenever you move through your Riptide, you generate osmosis, which is fantastic for getting yourself back up to max after tossing out a heal. This Helix does a lot to increase your healing potential or simply to get you back up to max osmosis for the movement speed increase. Once I get Refresher, I'm usually a little more selective with when I use Riptide rather than throwing it out constantly. I can use my ultimate and regular attacks to handle minion waves, and most of my healing is from Wellspring, so that means I can save Riptide for its slow and its osmosis generation. Level 7 is yet another awesome Helix upgrade by increasing your attack speed by 20%, boosting your damage and healing potential simultaneously. At this point, you should have your second gear piece activated, if not also the third, so you should have some pretty crazy attack speed. The difference is very dramatic, and Alani becomes a real late game powerhouse with this build, doing respectable damage and having the ability to toss heals out all over the place. Level 8 makes it easier to land your geysers either by decreasing the eruption time or increasing the radius of the geyser itself, and it's always helpful to be able to land your CC a little more efficiently. Level 9 doubles the length of Riptide and its healing effects if you chose that Helix. Level 10 changes the ultimate to add a slow, reset cooldowns, or do healing depending on your Helix choice. So there you go, the Revitalizing Surge build for Alani. I hope you guys enjoy this one, and be sure to let me know how it works out for you in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.